When a baby is learning how to walk, they fall over a lot, like a lot. And that's just expected, and it's part of the process. So if you can think of a new lifestyle or a new change that you're trying to implement, or a habit or a routine, as you're just a baby making your baby steps. You're gonna tumble, you're gonna fall, but you're gonna figure it out. Hi, I'm Meg. Welcome to Plant Fit Meg. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I hope you'll take a look around at some other videos. I make videos about healthy weight loss, simple plant-based recipes, and living a healthy lifestyle. Today I wanted to dig into the topic of failure and why it's okay to fail. And that might sound odd if you've never heard that concept before, but I strongly believe that it is okay to fail. It is part of the process, and whether you are just getting started on your plant-based diet and transitioning, or whether you're on a weight loss journey, or whether you're trying a new sport or a new skill or a new activity, failure is just part of the process. I wanted to address this topic because I've had a lot of comments saying that people have failed. People feel like failures with transitioning to a plant-based diet, or with their weight loss efforts, or with their fitness routine. I just want to put this video out there with my perspective on failure, why it's okay, why it's part of the process, and how to sort of maybe shift or reframe your mindset around the concept of failure so that it's okay. It's not as charged and as much of a dramatic ordeal when it happens, because it does inevitably happen. And if you're trying to make changes in your life, change is hard, and failure is just a part of the process. Of course, nobody wants to fail. Nobody starts something new and seeks to fail at the end of it. That's not human nature. That's not the way we're wired. That's not what anyone aspires to do. I'm not saying that failure is fun or failure is, unicorns and rainbows, because it's not. It's not fun, and it's not enjoyable. I've often thought in the past, wouldn't it be wonderful if I just knew what to do, what to say, how to do it, and I just did it, and I was just successful, and I didn't have to struggle, and I didn't have any issues, and I could just live my life and have everything be lovely and sunshine all the time. And it's an interesting thought, but it is so far removed from the reality of our world and of our human experience, and it's just not practical to think in those terms. Sorry for the change in background. I'm just editing and realized I forgot to mention something quite important. So define what failure and success mean to you. It can look very different for different people, and it can be helpful to define those terms and figure out what that actually means before you get into trying to make changes and trying to implement a new lifestyle or embark on a weight loss journey. So maybe success is, going a week with no animal products. Maybe it's not eating processed food for a couple of days and then making a new goal as you go. So I think it can be really important to define what those things actually mean, and when a fail happens, then you can stop and reevaluate and move forward from there. I also think it's important to mention that if you are on a weight loss journey specifically, and you're using the scale as your marker of success, that can be a little tricky. So I think the scale is a great tool. I'm not against weighing yourself. I think it can be very helpful. However, non-scale victories and other methods of measuring your weight loss are equally, if not more, important than the scale. So maybe your goal is to lose a pound a week, and maybe you feel like a fail because you didn't lose a pound this week. Maybe you gained a pound this week, or you maintained your weight. It's important to look at other measures of success that you can look at and see where you're at. So how's your energy? How are your clothes fitting? What are your measurements looking like? And looking at that over a longer term than just a day or 2 days or even a week. Looking at it over, a couple weeks, 3 weeks, and making progress and making changes from there. If you set up these definitions and you set it up so that your definition of success is a little broader, for example, you're not just using the scale, but you're also measuring yourself. You're also looking at these other factors like energy and how your clothes feel and all that, then maybe not losing a pound in a week is not actually a fail at all, because if your energy level's high and if you're feeling good in other ways, maybe that's not even a fail, right? So it can be helpful to just sort of change your perspective a little bit and maybe broaden the scope of what success actually looks like, and consider giving yourself a little bit more leeway in your definition of success and your definition of failure to allow yourself for more success. Everybody fails, and whether you see it or not, everybody fails. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has flaws. And on social media, it can be easy to sort of get wrapped up in what you see, in images or in videos, and people have curated their lives in such a way where it looks perfect from an outside perspective. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, particularly as long as you as a viewer are understanding that you're seeing only a small fraction of whatever content you're watching. So even with my videos, I try to keep it real, I try to keep it chill, and I try to show, my real life. My son interrupts my videos and stuff like that. But obviously, there's a lot that ends up on the cutting room floor. And the same is true for every creator out there. And some creators, do more to their images in terms of like Photoshop and filters and all sorts of other manipulations to really amp them up. And again, there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, as long as you as a viewer are aware that these things might be in play when you're looking at Instagram, for example, or looking at YouTube videos. Whether your favorite creator shares it or not, they have failed. They have failed in some way, in some aspect. Nobody is perfect. And they might not share it, they might not show it, and that's okay. That's everyone's personal preference and personal decision to make when they're putting content out there. But to be aware that just because you see something that looks like success and looks like perfection doesn't mean that there weren't hiccups along the way and mistakes made and all that kind of stuff. If anyone ever does say that they never made a mistake or have just been 100% on plan 100% of the time, and this is their magical method of being 100% perfect, be very, very wary of anyone who promises anything like that, because it's just not based in reality. It's just not. So it took me a long time to come around to being okay with failing. I used to look at failure as a very black and white concept, and I was either failing or I was succeeding. And there was no gray area in the middle, and it was it was win or lose, pass or fail. And that's just the way I looked at it for a very long time. And to a certain degree, that can be true. If you're in a class, for example, and you fail the class, then that's accurate. You failed the class. However, you could retake the class. You could take a different class. You can choose a different path. So There's always some degree of gray area in there when you're making decisions, making choices, and making changes in your life. Making mistakes and making bad decisions is part of the process. And as long as you can take those errors and evaluate and learn from them, then you're golden, you're good to go, because that means you're making progress. This is not about being perfect. This is not about knowing exactly what to do, doing it perfectly 100%, and then everything being wonderful forever. Again, that's just not based in reality. Everyone messes up in some way or another. And it's really about how you react and respond to your failures that really defines how you're going to move forward and progress and gain success in the future. When I used to fail in the past, I would get so down and so disappointed in myself. And I would just tell myself that I wasn't capable, that I couldn't do it, that I wasn't strong enough, that I didn't have the willpower, all these things. And I would just completely give up, completely give in. And then I would swing to the other side where I would fail, and instead of getting really down and upset and telling myself I can't do it, I would do the opposite, where I would try to be absolutely 100% positive about everything. So when I would fail, I would turn around and say, okay, I failed, but I have to be positive. I have to look on the bright side all the time. I have to, turn this around. And to a certain degree, those things can be helpful. So to reframe it, to take action, and to look at it in an optimistic way of I can turn this around is really, really helpful. However, when you get into thinking that you must be positive 100% of the time, that is toxic positivity, and it is very unsustainable in the long term, because that's not the human experience, to be 100% positive 100% of the time. It's just not reasonable to expect that from yourself. And so I sort of went from these two extremes of being really, really down and really upset and really down on myself and having so much fear of failure that I just gave up and wouldn't even try for a while until I'd try again, to being on the opposite end of the spectrum where I would just expect myself to pick myself up by the bootstraps and be positive about everything 100% of the time and try to figure it out that way. And I think good vibes are good, but it's never good vibes only. We experience unexpected and unpredictable events all the time, and we are allowed to experience the full range of human emotion and not label them as good or bad. Of course we want to be happy, of course we want to be content and joyful and live our lives in those emotions. However, we need to allow ourselves to feel sad, to feel disappointed, to feel angry, and to just let that happen and be okay with not being okay if that's what is happening in the current moment. The other thing about having a positive outlook all the time, besides it being completely unsustainable and unreasonable, is that having just positivity without any action behind it is pretty useless. If you have a positive outlook, of course that can be helpful, but if you're seeking to be positive 100% of the time and you're kind of sitting on a cloud saying, well, I'm just going to be positive and that will change everything and that will help me lose weight or help me transition to a plant-based diet and help me to get into my fitness routine, whatever it is that you're trying to change and trying to do. It's not enough to actually get to where you want to go. You have to be willing to do the work and try. And even if you have a fear of failure, you need to move forward and keep learning and keep growing and keep trying, and then react and respond to the failures and the successes as you go. Now I try to look at fails from a completely different perspective. First of all, being aware and acknowledging that everyone fails, nobody's perfect, everyone has flaws, stuff happens, lives are not perfect. I ask myself why I failed. So if I fail in something that I'm trying to do, I ask myself why. And if there's maybe something I can pinpoint to that is specific, that I can say, okay, this is really the reason, this is why things sort of went awry. And then try to resolve that issue and try to maybe step outside of the situation a little bit and look at it as if it's not really my life, to look at it as if I'm looking at someone else's experience and someone else's life, and sort of try to be objective as possible to, I guess, be more analytical and less emotional about it. And not that being emotional is bad, because it's not, of course, but I think when I was able to take the guilt and the shame out of it and just assess and try to reason it out. Part of it was to get curious. So when I would make a mistake, instead of being super down and super just going completely in the opposite direction, or trying to be super positive, good vibes only 100% of the time, I tried to find a middle ground where I would get curious. I would get into exploration mode. I would try to figure out what happened and where I went wrong and do my absolute utmost to learn from the mistake. And sometimes it was an external force of some kind, other things taking priority, other things going on in my life. And that's okay. And I think it's important to be kind to yourself in the process. And when you fail, know that you can turn things around. We all make choices, we make decisions, and we all have choice. We make so many choices and decisions throughout an entire day. And if we can make good choices and turn things around, that will lead us closer to success. And I think this is another area where it's good to point out that it's not a black and white pass-fail system. For example, if you are just getting started on your plant-based journey and you have a slip-up, maybe you are out to dinner with friends and you eat something that was not part of your plan, how you respond and react to that one event can dictate where you are tomorrow, where you are 2 weeks from now, where you are a month from now. Imagine where you would be if you got really down in the dumps and really, really upset and just completely had the complete fear of failure, telling yourself you're a failure, and just gave up. Where does that lead you in the future? Where does that take you in 2 weeks' time, 3 weeks' time, a month from now, and beyond? Where does it take you if you are having toxic positivity and trying to force yourself to slap a smile on your face and trying to just be 100% positive about the situation? Where does that lead you down the road in the future? Or if you try to take an approach of learning and of continuous learning as you go and as you grow and as you progress and figure things out, where does that take you? If you learn something from the mistake, that will lead you to make a better choice next time. Maybe, hopefully. And so you can kind of play out the scene in your head of how it would go if you respond to the same situation in a variety of different ways. I would encourage you to feel what you feel. If you're upset, if you're disappointed in yourself, if you're angry, feel what you feel. Let that happen. It's totally fine to feel what you feel and not try to force positivity on yourself. And then get curious, get into exploration and experimentation mode. Try to figure out what works for you. I mean, some people will swear by eat to live, the nutritarian way of eating in a plant-based diet. Some people swear by the starch solution. Some people follow Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen. you know, people have different approaches to kind of get themselves to the same spot, and you need to find what works for you and what kind of mentality you need to have to find success and to figure it out. And I like to gamify things. I've really gotten into this lately, and I've discussed it in other videos, but making a game out of it. If you make a mistake, see it as an opportunity to do better the next time. I also like to get a little analytical with it, and it's like you're collecting data about your life, and so that you can make different decisions if you want to in the future. I also recommend looking at what you did right. So oftentimes when I used to make a mistake in the past, I would hyper focus and dwell on that mistake and just, oh my gosh, why did I do that? What was I thinking? And I would just catastrophize the whole thing and just over dramatize the whole event in my head, and it would blow up into this huge ordeal. But once I started to look at one mistake as just that, one mistake, and look at all the other things that I did right throughout a day or throughout a week, and realizing that that one mistake is not going to completely destroy my progress and completely destroy what I'm trying to achieve, then it was easier to sort of accept that, okay, failure is part of it. Let's just lean into it, figure it out, learn from it, and move on and move forward and make progress and focus on progress and the process rather than focusing on perfection and the end point. Another way to look at this is from a child's perspective and how you treat children when they make a mistake. So, for example, when a baby is learning how to walk, they fall over a lot, like a lot. And that's just expected, and it's part of the process. So if you can think of a new lifestyle or a new change that you're trying to implement, or a habit or a routine, as just, you're just a baby making your baby steps, you're gonna tumble, you're gonna fall, but you're gonna figure it out, and you're gonna make it work, and you're gonna learn how to walk eventually, and then run, and then do all these other things. So I encourage you to do your best on your plant-based lifestyle, do your best on your weight loss journey or your fitness routine or whatever change you're trying to make. Make the best choices you can with the resources you have, the knowledge you have, and reach out if you are looking for a coach. You can contact me through my website for one-on-one coaching. You can obviously check out all my free content here on YouTube and on my website, and check out my Instagram and my TikTok account, which is kind of weird. I'm kind of new to TikTok, but anyway, check me out there for other ideas and inspiration. Let me know what you think about failure, and if it's okay for you, or if it's the end of the world, terrible, or what you think. So I hope you really enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you liked it, please give it a like. Subscribe below if you haven't already. I hope you're having an awesome day. Remember to be kind to yourself. Oh, we're getting a thumbs up from Riordan. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!